Welcome to Fox Soul's Black Report, your daily source for Black news, views, and opinions. Today is Tuesday, August 2nd, and I'm Mimi Brown.
And I'm Romeo.
I'm Demi Lobo. And on today's report, the fight to get WNBA star Brittney Griner home heats up as she appeared in court today. Her lawyers pleading for leniency from a judge. Meanwhile, a civil rights group is demanding Joe Biden keep his promise and relieve millions of student loan borrowers by erasing $50,000 in student loan debt. Then, a white former employee at a department store is seen using a racial slur on the job. We'll show you video footage from that incident, and that worker, he feels like he was not in the wrong.
Plus, a clip of Wiz Khalifa lashing out at a DJ goes viral, and Beyonce removes a word from her song on her album. We have all of that and so much more. This is Our Voice and Our Truth, so let's get it.
WNBA player Brittney Griner was in a Russian court today for another hearing that will likely end with her conviction later this month. Griner's lawyers are asking for leniency from a judge and a U.S. diplomat. They are working behind the scenes to get her released. Last month, Griner pled guilty to having cannabis oil in her luggage as she was trying to leave Moscow. This was back in February. In Russia, a guilty plea does not end a trial. Proceedings are expected to go on for a few more weeks. Now, last week, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, he made an offer to swap Griner and Paul Whelan for a Russian arms dealer. So ESPN is reporting that although we thought the trial would take a little bit longer, it could end as soon as Friday. So we know that Griner is facing 10 years in prison if she is convicted, which is highly likely because Russia has a 99% conviction rate in criminal cases. So right now what we're seeing is we're probably just going through the motions. And so as we've been reporting here on the Black Report, there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes that we're hoping, even if she is convicted, they'll be able to make these prisoner swaps and things like that. But Russia, they are apparently very upset about the news of the prisoner swaps being publicized, and so that could be a potential problem. That's something else that ESPN is also reporting, and so we'll see what happens. We know they want to swap her out as far as swap her out and Paul Whelan for the Russian arms dealer and for the convicted murderer in Germany, and so they're working on all of that behind the scenes. Again, we could have a verdict as soon as Friday, so we'll see what happens.
You know, just seeing the video footage that we showed doesn't show that she was escorted in by a dog. That we did show that she was placed into a cage, and to me, and I get that every country has their different way of doing things, but to me it just seems as if they're treating her as if she was like a convicted murderer, like putting her in a cage. She's already in handcuffs and escorted in by a dog just seems like a bit much. But during court today, there was a state narcotics expert who pretty much dived into the cannabis oil that was found in her luggage. They pretty much went through all stages of trying to break down what exactly she brought into Russia. Then her lawyer, they pretty much came back saying they're challenging the analysis of the prosecutors that went through what the narcotics expert found, and they also said that this was flawed. It didn't conform to Russian law. So I'm really happy to see that we're in this stage of things where her lawyers are like, okay, we want to play ball here. You guys want to say that this is what you saw? Let's also say that this is what we saw. But leniency too is you said that in your story too, that their lawyers are asking for leniency, and I'm just like, you know, we can't ask them for leniency. Really, we have to give them the facts, do the prisoner swab, but asking them to be more lenient, the way that they've treated her just doesn't seem like anything they're trying to do right now.
You know, I agree. And the powers that be in Russia, here's how they feel. I feel like, you know, we'll publicize the situation. So at one point, we felt like we weren't talking about this enough. Now I feel like it's at the front of the conversation all the time. And they just don't want to work like that. I feel like they have the upper hand, so they want to move the way they want to move. For like, you know, we shouldn't publicize it so much. We have not received the deal, or we haven't made a deal with you guys, so what are you talking about? So we have to be careful about that because we don't want them to use that as leverage to continue to keep Brittney Griner possibly for 10 years.
Yeah, you know, Romeo, I wrote down the word leniency because as sad as it is, we are at their mercy. This is a foreign country. We don't have any power in this, and so we can play let's make a deal, but we also have to do it in a respectable way where we don't feel like we're coming in and we're taking over. And we have to remember the war in Ukraine and everything and all the sanctions that the U.S. has placed on Ukraine, which are placed on Russia.
Yeah.
And so, you know, there's a lot happening here. And so all of that is working behind the scenes, and all of that we have to keep in mind. So when we're talking and we know what we want, we still have to keep in mind that the ball is in their court, as you put it.
Fine line we
Absolutely,
have to ride.
absolutely. And I think that, you know, you guys hit it on the nail that we need to stick to the facts. If we're going to challenge the narcotics expert, let's do that. The prisoner swap, if not, but pleading to take it easy on us just doesn't seem like anything the Russians want to do at this point. The NAACP is demanding President Biden eliminate at least $50,000 in student loan debt. The civil rights group's president, Derek Johnson, wrote Mr. Biden last week urging him to do more than extend the moratorium on payments, which ends on August 31st. Now, Johnson says that extending the freeze will only extend the anxiety that millions of Americans are currently feeling. Biden is expected to make a decision on whether to extend the national pause on student loan debt and possibly cancel some of the debt by the end of the month. This is a discussion that you guys know I'm always very passionate about. I was interested to see that we're back at $50,000 because I think that we all kind of felt like $50,000 is not going to happen. I don't believe that Joe Biden is going to do $50,000, which we have inflation going on right now. We have baby formula shortage going on. The price of gas is intense. We're trying to get Brittney Griner home. It's a lot that he's working on that I think $50,000 is going to be a lot to ask for him. But I do believe that $10,000 is a reasonable number. So I was interested that the NAACP President Derek Johnson was back at $50K because I thought we all kind of agreed that we were never going to get that from him.
Yeah, you know, I think it's like one of those negotiating tools. You start high, you land somewhere in the middle, right? Yeah. So if we say 10, if we ask for 10, we may get 5. You never know. So I appreciate him asking for 50. I mean, heck, let's ask for 100. I mean, and then land somewhere in the middle. So that's how I see it. And I'm glad that the NAACP is staying on this and they are continuing to urge Biden to make this change for black people, because what we know is that the average black borrower they have an average of $53,000 in student loan debt. And so right now there's a study came out that says with high inflation and all the things that you named, Demi, that they have no realistic way of paying it back. And so I think that is how he's coming at that number, 50,000, or why he's coming at that number, 50,000, because studies just have shown that the average black borrower has about $50,000. And so that would be what is most helpful. And he also doesn't want to cap the income level. So I think it caps at $150,000. And he also says that that's unfair, that, you know, people borrow millions almost, depending on if you want to be a doctor. Yeah. And so if you may be a doctor and make $150,000 or whatever, that's not going to stop you from having to pay back more than you make just because you make $150,000. So I really applaud him.
You know, and when you think about the NAACP, and, you know, like kind of like demanding wanting this done, right? There's a lot of things we as black people of color still want to get done by the Biden administration. We're falling short of some things. Yes, we have gotten some things, and when you gave that figure of $53,000, it is true. Black and African American graduates owe an average of $25,000 more on a student loan than white college graduates 4 years after graduation. 48% of black students owe an average of 12.5% more than the one that borrowed. So we see who's being hurt the most by the situation. So we talk about the NAACP being at the front of this, it makes sense.
Romeo, I just have to say one more thing here. This is also something that President Derek Johnson, he said, and this kind of really sums up everything that we've said and just puts the nail in the coffin here. He says student loans is something that is causing a barrier for people to get their lives started, for people who are interested in becoming homeowners, business owners, or just being able to start a family. Student loan debt is something that weighs heavily on us. And I feel like that just wraps it all up together. We cannot get our lives started because so much student loan debt. So even if we get the $10,000, President Joe Biden will be happy with that.
Absolutely. Really quick, too. to, because you just brought up a good point, they weigh your debt to income ratio, right? So when you're trying to buy a home, if you have a lot of student loan debt, it can disqualify you.
Yes.
You know, I mean, there are so many barriers that this places on us. And so absolutely, if Joe Biden can help, you know, he ran on this. This is not something that we just made up. I don't think that any of us would have even thought this was a possibility until he put it in our minds. And so now asking him to keep his feet and hold his feet to the fire is nothing wrong with that.
Oh, that's
Definitely
good.
not at all.
That's good.
All right, one of the masterminds behind the 9/11 attack is dead. Ayman al-Zawahiri was killed during a drone attack in Afghanistan yesterday after Osama bin Laden was killed in 2011. The Egyptian-born radical took over the organization, which lost its influence over the last decade. U.S. intelligence officials say al-Zawahiri was staying in a safe house in Afghanistan.
He was deeply involved in the planning of 9/11, one of the most responsible for the attacks that murdered 2,977 people on American soil. For decades, he was the mastermind behind attacks against Americans, including the bombing of the USS Cole in 2000, which killed 17 American sailors and wounded dozens more. He played a key role in the bombing of U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania, killing 224 and wounding over 4,500 others.
Intelligence experts suspect the Taliban knew al-Zawahiri was living in Kabul. Then they say agents tracked him down earlier this year and spent months trying to make sure that it was him.
And Chief Justice John Roberts reportedly tried to lobby his fellow conservatives on the Supreme Court to save the constitutional right to abortion. According to reports, the leak of the draft opinion reversing Roe v. Wade made the effort all but impossible. The report says Roberts tried to sway Justice Brett Kavanaugh into switching his vote away from getting rid of a woman's right to choose. During his time as Chief Justice, Roberts has moved toward the middle of the court, often voting with liberals on issues like the Affordable Care Act, better known as Obamacare.
Georgia Senator Raphael Warnock says that Herschel Walker is afraid to debate him. Warnock has challenged Walker to 3 debates. Walker's campaign has promised to take part in the one-on-one debates, but so far has not agreed to any of those dates. In other campaign news, a new poll has Warnock ahead, a substantial lead over Walker. A survey at USA WXIA-TV, it shows that Warnock has had 48% to 39%. The poll also shows that 9 in 10 Democrats support Warnock, while only 77% of Republicans are lined up behind Walker.
African-American gay rights organizations want the White House to help change the name of monkeypox. Groups like the National Black Justice Coalition say monkeypox is stigmatizing to black LGBTQ people. They want the virus to be referred to as its acronym MPV. Gay rights activists say monkeys and apes have been used by white supremacists to ridicule black people for centuries. The virus, which has been disproportionately hitting the gay male population, has constantly appeared in Nigeria for years. Last week, White House Press Secretary Karen Jean-Pierre was asked if the White House had plans to encourage the use of the acronym rather than use monkeypox when referring to the virus. Jean-Pierre said she was not aware of any conversations about the change among White House staff.
And Wisconsin Democrat Mandela Barnes is clearing the path to his party's nomination in the state's U.S. Senate race. 3 opponents of Barnes dropped out of the race last week. This leaves him with a good chance to get the party's nomination to go up against incumbent GOP Senator Ron Johnson. Now, Barnes is currently Wisconsin's lieutenant governor. There are 4 other candidates left in the race, but none of them poll above 1%. The state's primary is August 9th. Johnson is expected to win the Republican primary. A recent Marquette Student Law School poll shows Barnes with a 2-point edge over Johnson, 46 to 44.
And a Massachusetts district attorney is adding 2 positions in his office to prosecute hate crime violations. Kevin Hayden, the DA for Suffolk County, which includes Boston, says that he's worried about organized white supremacist actions that have taken place in the Boston area in the last year. Earlier this month, a group calling themselves the National Socialist Club marched through the streets of Boston. The Anti-Defamation League says the New England-based neo-Nazi group, founded in 2019, espouses racism and anti-Semitism.
The Grand Rapids, Michigan Police Department discriminates against the city's African-American population. That's what the Michigan Department of Civil Rights found after an investigation of the police force. The department filed formal charges against the city after 2 separate complaints of Grand Rapids cops mistreating black people in 2017 and 2020. The charges could result in penalties. One stems from the 2017 incident where a cop pointed a gun at an 11-year-old black girl who was handcuffed. The department cleared the officers involving, saying they did not violate department policy. Cops were looking for a stabbing suspect at the time of the incident.
A white Dillard's department store employee caught on video calling a black customer the N-word has been fired.
I carry myself with honor. I would never disrespect any human being by calling them outside of their name. That of what you did. You don't know the impact of what you've done to my son.
Okay, so let me explain what you guys just saw. So this is a video of the incident, and that was posted to Instagram by the cousin of Muhammad Kareem. Now, the incident took place last month at a Dillard store in Dallas. The shopper kept his cool and told the former employee his use of the racial slur was damaging to his child. The store worker claims he made the comment after he hit his leg and was not directing it to the child. So the worker says he hit his leg, and he says, effing N-word, I believe is what he said. And we're talking about a 10-year-old child. And so I guess the little boy went back and he told his father. And his father, with so much dignity and so much grace, approached the employer and kindly blessed him, you know, did not say anything, curse him out or give him the reaction that I think a lot of people would have had if they called their 10-year-old son the N-word. And so they recorded the incident. They took it to social media. It then went viral. So Dillard's, they put out a statement. They said the allegations made against our former employee were promptly investigated, and it found that they were in clear violation of our standards, and the employee he's been fired. So, you know, I feel for this man, too, because he has to go home and talk to his son. And he said he was going to have to explain to his 10-year-old son what that word is, what that means, and try and keep his son from, you know, basically being scarred by this incident. And so that's a heavy thing to put on a parent when you're just out, shopping for clothes. And now you have to go home and break this down for your child.
That is actually a great way of looking at it, Mimi. I never looked at it from the view of a parent dealing with this. I simply was interested because I thought it was interesting that the employee, he said that he hit his knee. He didn't mean it the child, but where was it going to? If it wasn't to the child and it was a black person,
right,
you weren't calling it yourself that. So it just really goes to show you how lenient. We're talking about lenient as our word of the day today here. We're talking about how lenient you, not you, but there are certain people in the world use the word that it was probably subconscious. He didn't even probably realize that he said it because he probably is so used to suppressing it and not saying it out loud that he usually says it inside of his soul, inside of his head, and it accidentally spewed out. So he probably doesn't even know where it came from because he's used to holding it in, and it just kind of like, you know, the pain couldn't help him and he just had to shout it out loud.
So the N-word can be used towards a person, place, or thing now.
Exactly.
Is that what
it's
we're
a
getting
noun.
at?
It's a noun.
Now my knee is an N-word.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
we're
you
saying.
think about that, and we've saw so many incidents on social media where things were handled quite differently. So I do applaud this black man for the way he handled his business. And yes, I have to have that conversation with my son too. There's going to be a day where he's going to have to encounter that. He's only 9. It's unfortunate. It's the world we live in. We will hope as we have kids, as we get older, they don't have to deal with that word. But it sounds like it's still here to stay. And you know, this man has been fired, but I still want to know, like you, Demi, what was he referring to really?
Yeah.
That's a good question.
I think he says it all the time. He says it all the time, and so this incident happened, and it was just another incident for him to say it, but I don't think that he expected the little boy to hear it or someone to hear it and to be called on it.
You know how like you're in your car and someone cuts you off and you probably call them a slur, or not a slur, I won't even use a slur, you probably called them a name that I can't say right now, and you're just used to saying that, but you're in your car. It's just you and no one else knows. But then you get that situation where it actually absolutely accidentally comes out because you show how you really feel about a person. So I think that's what happened there. All right, so an Ohio jury took 5 hours to find Euclid officer Michael Amiot guilty of assaulting and interfering with the civil rights of a black driver. This is police video footage of the 2017 arrest. Amiot's convictions are first-degree misdemeanors. He was acquitted of another count of assault. Amiot faces up to 360 days in jail. Sentencing is later this year. Amiot was fired by Euclid's mayor a few months after the incident, but he was reinstated by an arbitrator. Amiot has had a history of police abuse. He was forced to resign from the Mentor, Ohio Police Department back in 2013 after he lied about a traffic stop. In 2017, he also accused of pepper spraying a man who was recording him arresting teens. That same year, Amiot was accused of throwing a 16-year-old girl to the ground and putting his knee on her back during an incident at a library.
The family of a black Houston man shot in the neck after cops chased him for allegedly stealing laundry detergent say they will sue the Harris County Sheriff's Office. A Harris County sheriff says they were called to the Dollar General store for a report of a man stealing and assaulting a store clerk. The deputy chases Roderick Brooks and catches up to him after firing his taser. The video then shows Brooks with the taser in his hand and the deputy on top of him. That's when the deputy fired one shot into Brooks' neck, killing him. Brooks' family says the video has been edited. A lawyer for the family says the full video shows the deputy punching Brooks. They want the Justice Department to investigate the shooting. The Harris County Sheriff's Office says the incident is under investigation.